Welcome to another episode of Inside the 605. Jason Andera right here. Ryan Deal joining me to talk about all of the postseason action coming up in the next few days and previewing even some bigger matchups coming up after that. Ryan, first of all, how are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We were kind of talking the other day about the weather. We've had such a mild winter here in South Dakota, but then right as the we're getting cranked up with the postseason, of course we get some snow, but we got to roll with it, and we're gonna keep pushing forward for some postseason basketball.
Yeah, a couple games affected by that Tuesday, especially in the boys' regions, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's start off with the girls' basketball. All three classes, the SoDak 16 is set. Let's start in girls B. I guess one of the big storylines in girls B, Centerville Tornadoes started out the year as the number one team, undefeated season so far. They're looking for a path to a back-to-back title. Impressions from Centerville from you, Ryan?
Been very impressed with Centerville. Last year that was such a great story what they were able to do. Winning the state championship. Did it with a lot of players that kind of had to go through some rough years with that program, and they won the state championship. And now here they are, with a target on their back on their back. Let's be honest. I mean, they won it last year and they returned a lot, and everybody's looking at them and everybody's giving them their best shot. And they've answered the challenge. Every single game this year. They're undefeated, and they played some quality teams throughout the season. They got 3 more games to go. 4 more games to go. Before they can able to repeat as champs. But yeah, absolutely, the Tornadoes are really looking good right now.
So as we kind of look at the SoDak 16 pairings, we've got another undefeated team in Class B. The Harding County Ranchers are undefeated as well. Lyman comes back with some talent. They made a run in the state tournament last year, and then Parkston's first year in B, and they come in as a 4 seed. Just some storylines out of those top seeds coming into this SoDak 16.
Yeah, obviously we just talked about Centerville, deservedly so, but I definitely think, there are some other teams, right there behind Centerville that we probably need to talk about. And like you said, Harding County also undefeated. Lyman, very nice season again as well. Parkston moving down to B. They're another team that's right there. That we need to talk a little bit about a bit. And there's also some other teams. Bennett County. They might get into the SoDak. They're a team I think it's going to be on the rise here for the next several years and everything. So yeah, there's definitely some teams out there that probably need to get some recognition, and so it's not just Centerville and Class B girls.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about some of the more interesting or intriguing matchups in the SoDak 16 in Girls B. And let's start with Corsica Stickney taking on Sanborn Central Woonsocket. Now, Sanborn Central Woonsocket comes in as the 6th seed, but they've got enough talent to play with anybody. And Corsica Stickney has shown that they can knock off some top teams as well.
Yeah, this will be a fun one at the Corn Palace. Played earlier in the season. Corsica Stickney won that game on a late shot there. So obviously there's that storyline, going into this one, a rematch, 1 point game. So this is definitely, if I had to kind of pinpoint a game that you kind of got circled, and you're definitely going to keep your eye on, it's probably this one. Again, just because they played during the regular season. The Corn Palace is always a fun atmosphere for any kind of postseason game. So yeah, certainly this one is probably in Class B girls, one that is probably the most intriguing, I would say.
And then you always look to the 8-9 or the 7-10 matchups as those games that could be close. 7-10, we've got Kadoka area taking on Dubrook. And the 8-9, St. Mary's, a team that really played well down the stretch. They take on Northwestern. What do you think of those two games?
That Northwestern Del Rapids St. Mary's one is kind of interesting to me. Del Rapids St. Mary's, I think, has some really good guards. And I always kind of feel and say that, you win with guards, in postseason. I think if you have some guards that can handle the ball, handle some pressure and all those sorts of things, make shots, make free throws, you're going to be okay. And Del Rapids St. Mary's has some good guards. On the other side, Northwestern has a little bit more size. So obviously they're going to maybe try to, capitalize on that, their size advantage in that game. So I think it's kind of a little bit, kind of a difference in philosophies in that one. So that'll be an intriguing matchup there at the on Thursday and everything. And then, like you said, yeah, Kadoka, Dubrook area.
Yeah.
One thing I like about the SoDak is sometimes we get these matchups from teams, different parts of the state. It's kind of tough to kind of gauge how those matchups might go. And here's one with Kadoka and Dubrook, a couple teams with 19 wins and 17 wins, but we just don't know how this one's really gonna play out. No really familiar opponents. Obviously didn't play during the regular season or anything like that. So that one's going to be a little bit intriguing just because we've got the kind of the unknown element in that one.
Another interesting one to look at is that 5-12 matchup. We know Bennett County has some talent, only 2 losses on the entire season. They take on Warner, and we talked about, having teams play each other from the other side of the state, don't know a lot about each other. This one could go, who knows how it's going to go.
Yeah, and kind of like I said earlier, Bennett County is a team I think we need to start being familiar with in Class B. They dropped down from A this season, and Reagan O'Neill and Payson O'Neill are a couple athletes that people that pay attention to track, where what they do in track and field and everything. But they're just some really good athletes, and they're fun to watch on the basketball court because they're quick, they're athletic, they're always getting steals. So this will be an interesting one because again, like you said, a couple teams in different parts of the state, unfamiliar with each other. But I think some people are maybe circling that Warner to win this one. The popular 12 beating a 5 seed, if we want to steal an analogy from March Madness and everything. But I think Bennett County will probably be the team that comes out on top in this one.
Looking good. Those are your 16 teams. Good luck to all you 16 teams. And hopefully, we'll be talking about you next week as we preview the state tournament in Class B. Let's move on to Class A now. And in Girls A, no defending champion. The Vermilion Tanagers had a tough road to get just to the SoDak 16 and were playing well at the end of the year, but got knocked out. No defending champ, Ryan. What do you think?
Uh, that makes things a little bit interesting in Class A, and I think that just goes to show you in Class A it's tough. I'm sure the St. Thomas More teams were probably the last teams to probably repeat it in Class A. So I think that just goes to show you that it's tough, in Class A to do it again to be the back-to-back champs and everything. But I think that obviously just doesn't mean that the field of the teams that are still playing is weak or anything like that. I just think that goes to show you that there's some tough teams out there. So I think it's going to be fun. Last year I thought Class A girls was really fun how that shook out, and I think I've been saying it all year. I think it's going to be similar this year with Class A girls. I think there's a lot of contenders, so this will be fun these next couple weeks.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun last year. We had a couple undefeated teams. We had, a top ranked team. We had Katie Vasika and one of the best players in the state. This year, one of the best players in the state is also in the SoDak 16, Ashlyn Copel for Wagner. You've got Sioux Falls Christian has just that one loss on the year. Makpia Luta, undefeated team and have played a tougher schedule than they usually have. And then you've got Hamlin. They might be ready to make a run, with some transfers into their team, have taken the year to get used to each other. They look like they're playing well. A lot of good storylines in Class A.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, some good teams and certainly some good players. There's always some good players in Class A. Ashlyn Copel. We were just talking kind of off air. She had a quadruple double recently, and that just goes to show you what she's capable of doing. A 6'3", nationally ranked player in her class and everything. So she's certainly a headliner that we need to keep an eye on. But she'll have an interesting matchup with facing Lakota Tech. I think that'll be kind of an intriguing one as well.
Yeah, speaking of that one, Lakota Tech has Shania Ferguson, who's exploded this year as well. So a couple of really good players in that matchup. Let's talk about a couple more of the matchups. Again, you're looking at those close game possibilities. The 7-10, Sioux Valley and Miller. Sioux Valley, a lot of talent on the court. Kaylee Craddock has had a fantastic season, but it's not just her. They've got 4 or 5 players that can lead their team in scoring going against Miller. And then the 8-9 matchup, Ron Colley and MVP. MVP has played really well. Reagan Russ doing a good job of leading that group.
Yeah, the Roncalli Mount Vernon Plank will be fun because they played last year in this very same game and everything in the SoDak 16. So here they are again Obviously, some different players. Emily Fox graduated for MVP, now playing at SDSU, but there's still some same players on both sides of that matchup. So that'll be fun. That'll be kind of another one of those storylines that we kind of talk about, going into that one. And then, yeah, Miller, Sioux Valley, kind of similar to what I've been saying, two teams unfamiliar with each other. That's always kind of fun to see how those teams match up. But I believe they have the same record. So let's, we'll kind of see how that shakes out for those two teams and everything.
Another couple interesting games. You've got Mobridge Pollock with just 3 losses, an outstanding year. Probably overachieved a lot of people's expectations, taking on St. Thomas More, a team that, took Macpialuta to the end of the game. Like they took an undefeated team to the end. They can play with anybody in this class. That could be a good one as well.
Mobridge Pollock is kind of a team that I've kind of had my eye on, last couple of years and everything. Really good guard play. And you know how I feel about guards. If you have some guards, you're going to be
Yeah.
you're going to be just fine. They only have one senior, so I think this can maybe be the start of a nice little run for them. Mobridge Pollock likes to get up and down. With those guards, they're really going to look to push in transition. When you think of St. Thomas More, what do you think about? You just think about their
Defense.
defense. The hallmark of those state championship teams, and all the way up to this point has just been their defense. So this one will be kind of a contrast in styles, to see who kind of imposes their will a little bit. So I think this will be another one, to see how it'd be fun to see how it plays out.
Just looking at that bracket, the one team we really haven't touched on is Dakota Valley. They are the team that took out the defending champions. They've come into this season with a couple of really young players, a couple freshmen who have been outstanding, combined with some senior leaders. They could be a really dangerous team as well. And of course, those top seats we already talked about: Sioux Falls Christian, Hamlin, Macpialuta. There's some real strength at the top of this class. That is something I'm really looking forward to. Any other final thoughts on Class A before we move on to Double A?
I just think it'll be fun. I've been saying it all year. I just think last year we were in for a treat with Class A girls, the way that shook out. I think this year it's going to be fun out in Spearfish to see how that one plays out and everything.
All right, the Double A action. We've got this coming up on Friday, where the field is set and it's already bracketed out. So even if there's an upset, the bracket stays the same in Double A. The storylines that you have to point to is these O'Gorman Knights. They really changed over some of their talent, but have a really solid group of young players, and they haven't lost in a long time. Ryan, this is definitely the favorite, right, in Double A?
Absolutely. We kind of talked earlier about the run that Centerville is on. With they got a long winning streak right now, and so does O'Gorman. So it's kind of fun. We're kind of witnessing. I mean, we'll see how this stuff kind of plays out for these teams and these tournaments and everything. But it's kind of fun because we're kind of witnessing, I think, something kind of special here in South Dakota girls basketball with the run that some of these teams are on, and certainly Sioux Falls O'Gorman. They're just on a special run. 46 straight wins in a row, and I just think going into this tournament, it's gonna be tough for somebody to knock them out. But to me, that's always the beauty of Double A basketball. You don't have as many teams as you do in the other classes, so they just know each other so well. And we can't give it to Sioux Falls O'Gorman right off the bat, because remember last year in the first round at the state tournament, Rapid City Stevens gave them all they wanted. So I don't think it's necessarily a given by any means, but it's certainly fun to see O'Gorman and what they're accomplishing on the basketball court.
Yeah, they are on quite a roll right now. The contenders, Brandon Valley is up there. They kind of snuck into the championship game last year, and they're not sneaking by anybody this year. Olivia Patchett put up another two 20-point games in a row. She has developed into one of the top scorers. There's some other great players in this field. Grace Peterson, a couple all-state player for Washington, and of course Talia Porter, one of the best players in the state, getting points after points after points for Rapid City Stevens. Some good star power here in Double A.
Yeah, we just talked about O'Gorman, and it just feels like some of these other teams maybe almost kind of get overshadowed a little bit, because, like you said, there's certainly some good storylines, some good players, some good teams in this class. So we'll see how it shakes out. Again, Double A is always interesting to me because you just never know what you're going to get whenever you get the 8 teams, at the state tournament and everything. So yeah, certainly some teams that we should probably be talking about a little bit more and everything.
Let's touch on a couple other matchups. Roosevelt takes on Spearfish. Dakota Johnson, the coach of Spearfish, got him to the state tournament last year, got him back this year. She used to coach at Roosevelt and now takes on her old team. And Roosevelt, of course, in the last 3 years has improved each and every year. That could be a fun one. A couple of the close games we expect, Harrisburg taking on Pierre. When you get these two, the 7 and 10 matchup, anything could happen. And of course, Pierre has played really well in the last couple of weeks. I think they're one of the teams that are trending up right now. Jefferson taking on Aberdeen. Jefferson came out of the gates a little bit slow this year, but they've got one of the best players in Brindley Altenberg in the state, taking on Aberdeen with some young players who have really started to elevate their game. And then Mitchell, they played the toughest part of their schedule right at the end of the season, and their record and their seed took a little dip, but they've got a lot of talent there too, taking on a good Brookings team. Any of those games you want to touch on, Ryan?
I think that Pierre and Harrisburg matchup is kind of interesting to me. Like you talked about with Pierre, they just played so well down the stretch. Lennox Dupree's was simply on fire in some of those games and led them to some wins. But then they took some losses. Right at the end of the season, there took two back-to-back losses. So we'll see if they can kind of recapture what they were able to find there for a couple of games. But I think that one, kind of the traditional right in the middle of the pack there with the 7-10, the 8-9 kind of matchups. But I think that Pierre Harrisburg one is one I'll be kind of keeping an eye on.
So all the SoDak 16 games, we're going to know who's going to be in the state tournament here in just a couple of days. That's going to be a lot of fun. On the boys' side, we've still got some region play. We've got SoDak 16 matchups ready in boys double A. We're going to touch on boys B, A, and double A a little bit and maybe get into it a little bit more next week. But just in boys B, we've got qualifiers on Friday. In Region 1B, are there any potential upsets in that one? I'm not sure. In Region 2B, we could potentially have Wessington Springs and Woolsey Wessington with a three match instead of a rematch. What do you think of these couple of regions?
Yeah, you talked about Region 2B, just some great teams in that one, with Castlewood, DeSmet, S-Line Hendricks, Wessington Springs, Woolsey Wessington. And obviously the intrigue for me there is, like you said, Wessington Springs, Woolsey Wessington. Could be the third time that they played this year. I was at the one earlier this year, the 281 championship game. Woolsey Wessington was up 25 points, and Wessington Springs came back and won that game. So just kind of a crazy finish. So that's certainly a region to keep an eye on. And obviously with this, Castlewood could face S-Line Hendricks again. And S-Line Hendricks gave those guys, all they wanted. So certainly some intriguing storylines and some possible rematches that'll be fun.
Just kind of breezing through the rest of the regions, you've got Region 3B with Howard and Bridgewater Emory as a potential really good game. In 4B, Freeman and Parkston, two teams with their eyes set on a deep run. They have to get by each other. In 5B, Gregory at the beginning of the year, they were one of the teams that I picked to go a long way. They're playing really well lately. And then in 6, 7, and 8, are there any matchups there too that you have your eyes on, Ryan? Or you could touch on any of those other regions that I just mentioned.
You mentioned Gregory. Like you said, state tournament appearance last year, took a couple losses, right off the bat, and I think we kind of didn't really talk about him a ton. But if you watch Gregory play, I mean, they look the part. I mean, as far as just like physically. I mean, they've got some big players, some big dudes, and some good guards. I mean, you know how I feel about guards. I mean, if you got some guards, you're going to be all right. So
They have
I
some
think
guards, yep.
they have some guards. I mean, and it complements what they have with some of their bigs and everything. So Gregory, they're kind of an interesting team. Haven't got a lot of recognition or maybe attention throughout the season, but I think the Gorillas are certainly a team to keep an eye on.
By the way, in Region 7B, we've got White River with that streak, so many state tournaments in a row, and this year they haven't played quite as well. We got to give due to what that streak really means, don't we?
Yeah, the streak ended last night. They lost to Kadoka in their region game and everything. 19 years in a row. That's pretty impressive what Coach Eldon Marshall and the Tigers were able to do. Making it to state that many years, tying the Mitchell boys basketball record They went 19 years in a row as well, from 1983 to 2001. The Tigers went from 2006 to 2024. So, me with my historical stuff. So just spitting out some historical facts for you guys, but certainly a fun run for the Tigers, and kind of one of those historical things that we should definitely recognize and everything.
For sure. Let's talk about the qualifiers coming up in boys Class A now. And, we've got a couple of these regions where we've got like 500 teams with a chance to make it to the SoDak 16. That's not to say we need to take them lightly, but that's something just to watch. I saw that in Region 1 and Region 5 as well. Other regions to talk about. You've got Clark Willow Lake, who's got a really young team in 2A. Region 3A, we are used to having some of the most powerful teams in the state who are down maybe a little bit this year. And, in 6, 7, and 8, we've got some interesting matchups as well. What would you like to touch on in boys Class A?
I think probably, we started a little bit talking about Region 4A. Just, some DAC 12 teams in that one. We know what DAC 12 is, what they've been able to accomplish the last few years in Class A basketball. And right there at the top, obviously, with Sioux Falls Christian, runner up last year, returned everybody, certainly looking the part this year. So you got to talk about them. But on the bottom side of the bracket, we could have a Lennox Vermilion matchup to see who goes to the SoDak out of those two teams. So again, two teams very familiar with each other. I certainly think that's a matchup I'm anticipating, but that'll be a fun one in that region and everything.
Yeah, Dakota Valley's used to making it to the state tournament the last few years. They're going to have their work cut out for them against Sioux Falls Christian. So you're right. Region 4A is locked and ready to go, right?
Absolutely. And then Region 6A, I want to talk a little bit about Region 6A. Stanley County, Cheyenne, Butte, and Mobridge Pollock. Three teams right at the top of that region, all with about the same identical record, and they all took turns kind of beating each other during the season and everything. So I think it kind of goes to show you that those three teams at the top of that region are all pretty similar. And I think that's a region that doesn't get a lot of recognition or attention, but I certainly think those are three, quality teams and everything. And Stanley County won the Jones County Invitational. I mean, that's a fun tournament for those schools out in that area. First time somebody other than White River has able to win that in umpteen amount of years. Certainly Stanley County and Mobridge, Pollock and Cheyenne. Obviously, only two teams can come out of that region and everything. So we'll see how that shakes out. It'll be Stanley County and Mobridge Pollock, more than likely facing for one of the spots in the to come out of the region. So I think that'll be a fun region that doesn't get a lot of talk that I'll certainly be keeping an eye on.
That's what we're looking at in boys Class A. That's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, next week we'll get much deeper into Class A. In boys Double A, coming up Saturday, we've already got the SoDak 16, and like the girls in Double A, this is already bracketed out, and the top 16 teams, they play at the home court of the top 8 seeds. So some storylines this year. Lincoln came into the year with a lot of unknowns, a new coach, a lot of new starters, and they have come out and earned a top seed. And then we had Brandon Valley, Harrisburg, Mitchell, all tied in record, but they all got 2, 3, and 4 seeds, which could make an impact on this tournament. What are your thoughts on some of these top seeds in Double A?
Double A will be fun again as well. Mitchell won it last year, returned some obviously a lot off of that team, but Sioux Valley, Brandon Valley, even like a Harrisburg, are a few teams that are right there at the top of that class as well. So it'll be fun to see how this SoDak 16 round shakes out. Like I said earlier, Class AA basketball, not as many teams as we have in the other classes, so a lot of familiarity when these teams get to this point of the season. So I think some people might look at a matchup and look at the previous result from the regular season, but I just don't know if that ever really means anything because these teams scout each other so well, they know each other so well. So the SoDak 16 for AA boys is always fun to see how that shakes out.
Look at Stevens, for instance. They're a team that's played the number 2, 3, 4, and 5 seeds within a one possession game so far this year, even though they come in as a 14. So they go into Harrisburg, anything could happen there. And some of these other matchups are really fun as well. T area, their first year in Double A, going to Spearfish. So they went from a potential home game to having to go all the way across the state and play against Spearfish. And Spearfish is a team that spent some time in the top five this year as well.
Yeah, that Spearfish T1, like you said, will be interesting for me to see how that plays out. T area obviously had a great run in Class A. Then they moved up to Double A, and obviously have taken some losses, but I think they've still handled their own in that class and everything. And yeah, like you said, now you got to make the long trip out to Spearfish. We'll see how they kind of handle that and everything. So that'll certainly be one to see how be fun to see how that one plays out.
Let's take a look at a couple of the other matchups. Jefferson and Washington. Speaking of two teams that know each other well, the head coach for Jefferson, Tim Reck, was a longtime assistant at Washington. There's a lot of connection between Jefferson and Washington. They know each other very well. That's going to be at the Washington gym on Saturday. And we've got some upset potential too. This Roosevelt team played really well in the second half of the season. They play O'Gorman, a team that's lost a couple of games coming in to the SoDak 16. And then Huron, they've been in and out of that top five almost all season long. But you look at the talent on that team, and with Blake Elwine and Anderson Porish and all these guys, these senior guards, you talk about guard play. They've got really good depth at guard. They're a team that feels like they can beat anybody or can lose to anybody. So, any final thoughts on Double A from you, Ryan?
I think that also another one is that Mitchell Rapid City Central. I think that'll be an intriguing one as well. Gilbert White Jr. out there at Rapid City Central, very athletic guard. It's been fun to watch him this season. But they got some guards as well with Marcus Talley, obviously, but they got a little bit more size, I think. So that'll be kind of fun to see a little bit kind of a difference, contrast in styles and everything. But I think that's another one that'll be an intriguing one.
Well, that'll do it for our SoDak 16 and region previews for this week. Next week, we'll be previewing some state tournament games, Ryan. I can't wait for that. And we'll back and do this again next week. How's that sound?
Sounds good. We'll talk to you later, Jason.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.